Kathleen Kennedy speaks on her Lucasfilm plans. She is not soon retiring in the films that will keep her in Star Wars orbit for years to come. So interestingly enough, this comes to us literally days after we heard that Kathleen Kennedy will be retiring, and I think even her team was speaking out about it. And she does kind of confirm some things here, so there is some really key things here I do want to point out, but she also denies a lot of the retirement rumors. So let's just get right into it. Exclusive. I thought I'd seen it all in trade journalism, but the piranha-like frenzy on Kathleen Kennedy and the successor speculation that followed Matt Baloney's Puck report that Disney was putting her out to new pasture is a new one on me. Baloney for years has been beating on Kathleen Kennedy like she owes him money, and this week he reported Kennedy was retiring. I recall he essentially did the same thing more than a year ago, and yet here she still is, producing the Mandalorian movie and prepping the Sean Levy-directed Star Wars film that Ryan Gosling is circling, as well as numerous other film and streaming projects with A-list participants. Yeah, we'll see if those actually stick around. They're probably all going to be canceled, especially the one with Ryan Gosling. Who knows about that Sean Levy-directed movie, but we'll see. Still, the trades followed with Gusteau dishing speculative reporting on who might succeed Kennedy. The takeaway was chaos and that Kennedy was being pushed. The reality is different and far more orderly. I just want to point out real quick, why do every journalism content website, why do they always have the craziest words? They use the dumbest words for no reason. Bruh. According to insiders, Kennedy has been working on a succession plan for a couple of years, eyeing candidates from within its process with Bob Iger and Alan Bergman. That puts someone like Dave Filoni, who knows the universe inside out, in a strong position. I admire Baloney's hustle and ability to turn over hard ground, but his penchant for defining industry people like Kennedy in disparaging ways, well, I just don't understand that. I didn't understand it when Deadline founder Nikki Fink did it here, and it feels like the appetite for Schadenfreude is nowhere near as high now. Given how this business is still trying to regain footing after the global pandemic, the year-long labor strikes, and the most recently, the devastating wildfires that ravaged Southern California. Kennedy would seem an unlikely target for ire, and good times are bad. 13 years into her run steering Lucasfilm, she's done much with the challenge of trying to broaden George Lucas's Star Wars vision after Disney bought it from him for $4 billion in cash and stock in 2012. It's a challenge. Amazon now will try with James Bond after purchasing creative control from 007 gatekeepers for $1 billion beyond the $8 billion they paid for MGM. As for them saying that this was a hard challenge for Kathleen Kennedy, I really don't think it was as hard as they actually made it out to be. Disney obviously wanted to take the franchise and make it in their own way, their own kind of universe, kind of broaden some of the things that George Lucas did, I guess. But what they really decided to do was make it extremely political. And of course, everyone always makes the argument that Star Wars was political, it always has been, but it's really always been about war. And nowadays, with Disney at the helm of it, it doesn't really seem so much about war. There's not this impending doom of war always. It's more political just ideology that's going on in current day, in present times, which obviously there is going to be some of that shines through in TV shows just in general, in content nowadays. I mean, it is the main thing, but we're talking about a galaxy far, far away. Why does it feel so familiar? I don't want it to feel so familiar, if that makes sense. So in my opinion, I think Disney has just made it a lot harder than they needed to for the whole franchise in general. Kennedy arguably is the most successful female producer/executive in Hollywood history. She has produced more than 70 films that have collected 120 Oscar nominations and 25 wins, and she herself was awarded the honorary Oscar with the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award with 8 other Oscar noms. Yes, that is actually very true. She has produced some of the greatest shows and movies probably in history. Mostly movies, I think. I don't even know if she's really worked on shows, but you can see here her resume is pretty crazy. Jurassic Park, Sixth Sense, Indiana Jones, Star Wars is in there, Poltergeist, Schindler's List, Back to the Future, and there are a lot of other ones as well. She is a very well-known, excellent producer, at least in the past. But we're not really in the past anymore, right? We're in the future now, and people fall off. That's just the truth of it all. Yes, she's produced some great films, but now she's heading Star Wars. She's at the helm of Star Wars with kind of some creative direction as well. Not only is she producing things, but she's probably also giving the green light for certain things to be, greenlit. So there's a big difference between showing her production stuff. Yes, she is a very decorated producer, but her Star Wars stuff is just not great. It never has been. And I think that we can, and I don't understand why we hide behind all that. It says, while it has been a challenge to please the Star Wars faithful, and there have been some misfires, the five Star Wars films she has produced have grossed nearly $6 billion, with streaming series successes topped by The Mandalorian and Andor. It's another thing I absolutely hate about Disney is that a lot of it's just all about money. Yes, nearly $6 billion. That is crazy, right? What's the other, the other thing that could do that would be like Avengers, but it says here, while it has always been a challenge to please the Star Wars faithful, and there have been some misfires, the five Star Wars films that Kathleen has produced have grossed nearly $6 billion, which, yeah, obviously that's great. Disney probably loves that. $6 billion, right? But it's not talking about how all of those films have basically failed at this point. The only one that really was successful was Rogue One, and it was actually a well made Star Wars movie. But even then, on that film, the director was sidelined by Kathleen Kennedy. She fired the original director. So someone else had to pick it up, and obviously they did a really really great job. So thankful for whoever came in and cleaned up whatever was going wrong there, but they did a really great job. And the final scene in Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars scenes in general. So Disney did something right there. But again, the big issue here is we're just talking money. We're not talking about how this these five films have carried the franchise. So moving into the future, these five films have almost destroyed the franchise. Well, four of them. Mainly three, let's just be honest. The Solo movie wasn't really that bad, but three of these films have basically destroyed the legacy of Star Wars and completely split the fandom. So you're talking $6 billion, but if we had really good, well made movies that the fans overall liked, this could have been $10 billion and, continued to sell forever, just like the prequels in the original trilogy do. I mean, I still buy copies of those things today just to collect. I will never probably buy the Disney movies. So it's just some food for thought if you really think about it. Yes, $6 billion is great, but isn't $12 billion over the course of 30 years much better? I don't really know, but I'm not, hired to do those things. It says, sorry, Matt, the woman is a first ballot Hall of Famer, not someone who deserves to be batted around like a pinata. She also deserves to own her own narrative and demystify this pseudo drama. Deadline gave Kennedy that opportunity, catching her just before she headed off to be honored tonight with husband Frank Marshall at the Oscar Wilde Awards. So I don't know if Deadline got paid to create this article. Just in general, even if you like somebody, you usually don't give them this much clout in an article, right? This has to be paid for and bought by Disney. I mean, I just don't see how it's not. So it looks like here is where the interview actually starts. Deadline says, we read all these speculative reports that you are out, that there's a frenzy for the next person who's going to take over Lucasfilm. What is the truth? Kathleen Kennedy says, the truth is, and I just want to say loud and clear, I'm not retiring. I will never retire from movies. I will die making movies. That is the first thing that's important to say. I am not retiring. What's happening at Lucasfilm is I have been talking for quite some time with both Bob and Alan about what eventual succession might look like. We have an amazing bench of people here, and we have every intention of making an announcement months or a year down the road. So, kind of confirmed right there. She's not retiring, but in a couple of months to a year, she's going to basically say who her predecessor is. I'm producing the Mandalorian movie right now, and I'm also producing Sean Levy's movie, which is after that. So I'm continuing to stay at Lucasfilm and looking very thoughtfully with Bob and Alan as to who's stepping in. So that is all underway, and we have every right to make that announcement when we want to make it. And of course they do. We're not telling you have to make the announcement today or tomorrow or a year from now, but I can tell you it will be a happy celebration for Star Wars fans when that announcement does finally come through. That you are looking within seems to give credence to what we've heard, that an exec like Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni is in a good position as he works on a Star Wars to write and direct. Kathleen Kennedy says, I can't say who it is because there's just an internal process that goes on inside a large corporation and a publicly held company as to how we go about making deals, finalizing decisions, making announcements, those sorts of things. Yeah, I think we all understand that. Obviously, they're going to do some big thing. For shareholders, they're going to let them all know way in advance. That's when we'll probably find out what's going to be going on. And I won't be surprised if Disney stock rises after Kathleen leaves. I mean, there are a ton of Star Wars fans that are kind of waiting for this to happen. And I just have to be honest, like Dave Filoni probably is in a good position to take it. But he was given the creative director role here at Lucasfilm. And the next thing that came out was The Acolyte. So with Dave at the helm, are we kind of in trouble there, or what's going on? I don't really know, but I have to be honest, as Dave Filoni, it basically for me has been the saving grace for Star Wars since Disney took over. I mean, he's created some great projects, and things that I really love and cherish. So I think Dave would be a great person to be in that spot. Maybe like a Kevin Feige. I don't really know. I don't really know what he could do differently for Star Wars. I feel like we're kind of cooked at this moment, but we'll see. We'll see. This flurry of press coverage, it sounds like chaos. What's the reality? Chaos? There has never been any chaos because we know exactly what the plan is, and we've been talking about it, as I said, nonstop for the last couple of years because for obvious reasons, I'm not going to be here forever. George asked me 13 years ago to step in. Now I'm looking at who's going to replace me. And as I said, we have a bench of people internally to handle the business, the creative side. The job has grown also since I stepped in. There was no streaming. There weren't a lot of things that we're involved in right now going on, so it has grown. How far down the road do you expect before a change gets made and then you go off and produce these two big Star Wars things? Kennedy says, we'll probably make an announcement months or a year out, and I have every intention of sticking around to help that person be successful. I'm already producing the Mandalorian movie, and Sean Levy's is after that. So it goes on to talk a little bit about her relationship with her husband, I think who also is a producer on some sort of projects. It asked him if they would like to work together in the future, and she said she would be happy to do that, which is obviously great. It's good to hear that she has a good personal life in general. But I did want to point out one more thing towards the end of this article that kind of just stuck with me that I just really don't like. It leaves just a bad taste in my mouth. But Deadline does ask Kathleen, does she have any regrets with Star Wars? And she says no. And I mean far from regrets. I love the challenge of stepping into this space, and literally space, and being with Star Wars over these years. Taking on the challenges of expanding on Star Wars. I've loved working with Disney, and the company has been fantastic in its support of the IP. They've expanded things in ways I don't think George could have even imagined. Huh? And it's been such a learning experience. Liar! And right there, I think it just goes to show that how much I just really don't value George Lucas. I mean, the guy literally created this thing that she's making so much money off of. And it's just really upsetting to hear, kind of what she says here. She probably doesn't mean it in any sort of bad way. But when you see her say that Disney has expanded things in ways that George could not have even imagined when the dude created the entire galaxy, it just blows my mind that she could even say something like that. Moving on, it just says, I've never been an executive before. I'm a filmmaker through and through. I even approached the executive role as a filmmaker. I love working with filmmakers. That is my lifeblood. It's what I enjoy more than anything. And it kind of just goes on to talk about, she's going to stick there and be around whoever does take over her role. She's going to stick alongside them and help them through the process. And hopefully she can actually give some insight on, garnishing that hate. I mean, and kind of navigating through it at least, because whoever steps in next, if the first project that they kind of, when they take over, if it's not something great, they're going to get a lot of hate for it. So I just hope that she can take maybe some negatives that she's learned and turn it into positives for them, or at least help them navigate and guide through that. Obviously, I'm excited for Kathleen Kennedy to be out of here. I just don't think she's done a great job, in my opinion, but I'm really looking forward to the future of Star Wars. For a while, I wasn't even posting on this channel because I was just so distraught with the state of Star Wars in general. But it's looking like potentially we could be back. So I'm happy to be back making videos, but I just still can't believe she said that about George. I mean, I really just can't believe that. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully Kathleen does actually retire and we get some news soon.